Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the mazes group in the create tab of the Timesavers add-in. When you want to create a maze, the first thing you're going to go and do is select the shape that you want your maze to be. There are a number of shapes that you can choose from that are provided for you, or you can go and insert a custom image and create a maze using that image. If you insert an SVG image, then you can convert it to a freeform shape so that it can be used by right-clicking on it and choosing Convert to Shape. If you insert a PNG or a JPEG, then you can use the freeform tool over here in the insert over there, and you can go over there and there's your freeform tool, and you use that to trace around the shape so that you can then have a freeform shape that you can use for the maze creator to actually create the maze. Okay, now in this case, I'm just going to start off with a basic square, like that. You can see that it gets inserted on the slide, and then you have a start point and an end point. You can move those points to wherever you want them to be. So if you want your start to be there and your end to be there, then you can move them. The point, the dot over here, is where the actual point is going to be. The rectangle is a spacer that you can use if you want to create space inside the shape for a picture or something like that, that leads, or that the start point or end point will lead to or from. Okay, so now I'm going to go and have a look at the other settings you've got over here. So you've got the path width. You can choose if you want narrow paths or wide paths. There's a range of different widths that you can choose from. I'm going to leave it at 30 for now. Then the path length is, you've got different options here as well. The shortest possible, that will just have a random but still the shortest possible distance from the start point to the end point. Then you've got short, medium, long, and extra long, and for each of them it will just add extra deviations and extra detours to the shortest path possible. And obviously it'll depend on the size of the shape and the path width, how long the path can really be. The difficulty level is different to the path length. The difficulty level is based on the branches that branch off from the path. So if you have easy, then you're going to have very short branches that branch off from the main path. If you have very difficult, then you'll have much longer branches with extra branches coming off those. That makes it much more difficult to determine which path is the true path. Then you've got over here the style options. You've got gates or points. If you want the path to go through to where the start point is and through to where the end point is, then you choose gates. If you want to have just a dot, a green dot and a red dot showing where the start and the end are, then you can do that as well. So those are your two options there. I'm going to leave it on gates for now. I'm going to change this over here to medium. I'm going to use just the shortest possible for that for now. And then we're going to go and create our maze. Now you can see once the maze is created, you can see over here, the path can't get any shorter than this. This isn't the only possible path that I could have had. So if I go and redo it, it'll give me a different path, but also as short as possible. So you get different options. It will always be random, but it will, if you choose short as possible, it'll still be the shortest possible path. Okay, you can see that once it's created, then this window or this panel over here pops up, and you need to go and change the join type to round, because otherwise, if you don't do it, if I go and zoom in, let me just find here, you can see that that doesn't look nice. Unfortunately, the add-in is not able to do this. So what you need to do is, once you've created, just go and change join type to round so that it all looks nice and smooth. Okay, so that's how you can create a basic maze like that. So I'm just going to undo that, and then I'm going to go and change my shape. I'll go and choose a different shape. So let's choose a star this time. You can see it's inserted. I can go and choose where I want my start point and my end point to be. You can move them around as you want. And I'm going to change the path width to 10 points. I'm going to change the length to long, and I will keep the difficulty level as it is. And here I'll change this to points so you can see what that looks like. And I'm still going to be doing a classic maze now. There are other options I'm still going to show you, but for now we're just doing a classic maze. I'm going to go and create my maze. And then you can see that's what the maze will look like for that shape. Okay, so now I can go again and change this to round so it all looks nice and smooth. Okay, so that's how you can create a maze with different shapes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the next type of maze, which is the obstacles. So I'm going to go, I'll just put in a square again, and I'm going to go and create my maze like that. So now you can see this is what it looks like if you have obstacles. So you can see it's going to create your maze so that it will put in positions where obstacles would be, and you've got different paths that could be followed, but students would need to find the correct path by avoiding the obstacles. You can then go, once the maze is created, and replace these crosses with other shapes. So you can, or with other pictures or whatever suits the style of the maze that you are creating. Okay, once again, once the maze has been created, you should just go over here, change the join type to round so that it all looks nice and smooth. Okay, if you want, so I'm just going to go and recreate this using gates instead. When I create it, then it's going to look like that, and over here I'm just going to change that to round. So once again, then you can see that's what it would look like with the gates. You can see it goes out over there and goes out over there like that instead of having the dots. Okay, so that's the obstacles type of maze. Then once again over here you've got another option, which is the text maze. Now if you want to create a text maze, then I'm just going to start off with a square again. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to change this to 20 or 30 points. I don't recommend doing 10 points when you are working with a big shape. If you're working with a small shape, then 10 points is fine. But I don't recommend working with 10 points when you're doing a big shape because the text is very small, so it's difficult to see because the cells are so small. And also, it's going to take a long time to create because it's putting in a lot of cells and text. And it's too small to really work with. So I would recommend not doing smaller than 20, but even 30 I would say would probably be better. Okay, so I'm going to do 30 and I'm going to go and create my maze. And over here, when I click on this, it's now going to do something different because I need to actually tell the add-in what my text needs to be. Okay, it's not going to just know what I want. So I'm going to go and fill in over here what I want to be in the path value. So these are the values that the student would actually have to follow to get from the start to the end. So if I want them to follow any multiples of 2, then I can just type in 2s and I can put in a number range if I want to as well. If I don't put a number range, then it will just do the first 10 multiples of 2. But if I put in a number range, I can say 2 to 100. Then it will use any multiple of 2 between 2 and 100, or it will be skip counting in 2s from 2 to 100. If I choose a different starting value, so if I choose 1, then it will go from 1 counting in 2, so it'll be all the odd numbers. Okay, then for my filler values, what I can do is I can put in the values that I want it to be, or I can type in other. If I just type in other, if I have in this column over here, if I've only got numbers, then when I type in other, it will use all the other numbers in that same range that aren't already being used. Okay, so in this case, if I have over here 2s from 2 to 100, then it will use all the odd numbers as my filler values. Okay, so this will only work if you only have numbers over here, or if you only have letters over here. Not words, actual letters. Okay, so I'm going to go and create my maze. Now it's asking if I want my path values to appear in the order that I entered them. So I have entered it over here as 2s, 2 to 100. So if I choose yes, it will count in 2s, and as the path goes, it'll go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on. If I choose no, it will shuffle those numbers, and they'll just have to find any multiple of 2 as they are finding their path. So I have a choice over here. I can choose to have the values that I've got over here used in the path in the order that I've put them, or I can choose to have them shuffled if I want. In terms of the filler values, they will always just be shuffled and randomized as the extra cells are filled. Okay, so let's go and have a look at what this looks like. So I'm going to choose yes. I want them to be in the order that I've put them in over there. Okay, so now you can see over here, you've got your maze that's being created. The path is shown to you over here. And if I go and delete this, then you can see that I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, and so on. So I'm going to undo that, and you can see all of the other values over there, all the fillers that are not part of the path are all odd numbers, because I typed other into the filler values column to say that I want to use all the other values that aren't already being used. Okay, all the leftover values. So I can use text like that. I can also use other text. I can use a letter range if I want to. So I can say, if I want to do A, E, I, O, and U, then what I can do over here, if I still have other, is it will go and use the values that I've got over here, and it will detect that those are letters, and it will, for the other filler values, it will use all the rest of the letters in the alphabet. Okay, so let's go and do that quickly. So I'm going to go over here and click create. And in this case, I don't really mind. I don't need it to be in order, so I'm just going to click no. I want them to only be finding vowels. So now you can see over here that if I go and delete that, then if they follow all the vowels, I've got U, E, I, A, O, U, O, A, E, I, and so on. So as they follow the vowels, they will find their path like that. And all the other values that are not part of the path are consonants. Okay, so that is another option. You can also go and fill in actual values over here if you want to as well. So if you want to use words, you can have words in this column and words in that column that are your path values and your filler values. Obviously, you can't just type other if you're using words over here, because it won't know what other words to use. So the other will only work if you have numbers in this column or if you have letters in this column. It won't work if you have a combination of numbers and letters either. What you can also do is you can have over here numbers, so I can say 1 to 10, and then in this column I can have letters A to Z. Okay, and then once I've done that, when I go and create over here, I can choose if I want it to be in order or not. I'm going to click no. I don't need it to be in order. I just want them to determine if it is a number or a letter. And then you can see over here all the filler values that aren't part of the path are letters, and on the path I've got the numbers like that. So there's 2, 6, 10, 5, 1, 8, and so on. So it's good. They have to follow the numbers. Well, actually, that is an I, not a 1. That's a 1 over there. Okay, so that is how the text option works. Right, so then I also want to show you next over here what these are about. Okay, so you're able to create mazes that have multiple paths. Instead of only having one path, you can have two paths. The two paths can either start from two different start points and all lead to the same, or both lead to the same endpoint, or you can have a separate set of start and end points if you want to. So I'm going to go over here and insert my shape. I'm just doing a square again, and then I'm going to go over here. First of all, like I said, you can move around the start point and end point. You can put them wherever you want. You can also put them in the middle of the shape if you want to. They don't have to be outside the shape. Remember what I said, that the dot over here tells you where the path is going to actually start. But this shape over here, you can use to make space for a picture or something if you want to do that. So if you want the path to lead to an image, then you can use this shape to make space for that image and make sure that the path isn't going to take up the space of that image either. Okay, so over here I can do that, and then I can do this one as well. I can go and make a space over here like that, and I can have that say like that. Okay, now once I've done that, you need to make sure if you're doing this that the dot is right next to the spacer over there, the rectangle. Okay, so now I'm going to go and create my maze. Just wait, I want to just not do text. I want to do just a classic maze. Okay, we're going to create my maze, and I'm going to make that 10 points, make it a smaller path width. Okay, so now you can see over here that the maze has been created. You've got a space over there that you can put an image that the path is leading to, and you've got a space over here that you can put an image that the path is leading from. Okay, then you can also do the same thing with the extra start point. So if I put in an extra start point, it's now going to create a separate path that leads from this start point to the same end point over there. So I'm going to go and click on that. And now you can see when it creates the maze that I've got a separate path that is leading to the same end point over here. So I've got this path leading there, and I've got this path leading here as well. Okay. Then you can also create a completely new path with its own start and end points. So if I go there, you can click, I can just do this over here. If I make it so that they can't, if the two paths are impossible to create without a crossover point, they will cross over each other. So like this one over here, it's impossible for these two to find a path without crossing over. Okay, so when I create it, then you'll see that they will have a crossover point. They'll have an intersection over there. If it's possible for them to not cross over, so if I have them like this, then they won't cross over. They will never have more than one crossover point though. So you won't end up with a maze where it's going to cross over and cross over and cross over, and then the student will get confused about what way the path is supposed to be going because there are different options. That won't happen. There will only ever be one crossover point. Okay, so that's how you do extra paths with a start and end point. Then you've also got the stop point over here. The stop point only works for one path. It doesn't work if you're doing multiple paths. I'm just going to get rid of or move all these back to how they were, just so that I have enough space in the maze. And then over here, I'm going to add, you can add up to 3 stop points. So these allow you to put in points that students would have to pass by in order to get to the end of the maze. So it's like detours that you can determine. So they need to, from the start point, they have to go to a particular point, then they have to go to another one, then they have to go to another one before they can get to the end. Okay, so you can put in stop points. So over here, I can put this one in. I can move it where I want it to be. If I want to have a space for an image, I can keep this over here. If I don't want the space, I can just move it off there so that it's not going to create a space in the maze. So that one's over there. I can add another stop point, and over here I can do the same thing. If I want this one to have a space in the maze, I can make it the size that I need it so that there is space for an image or something over there, and I can add a third one if I want to as well. So then the path is now going to go from this point to that point, to this one, and then to the end when I create the maze. So over here, I can once again decide if I want this to be a space or not, or I can just move it off if I don't want a space. Okay, so then I'm going to go and create my maze. Okay, so now this one over here, you can see it started over there. It's made the way up to here. This is the first stop point. Now, because I didn't have the rectangle over here, it can't do a gateway because the gateway won't lead to anything. So it puts a point instead. If you don't want the point to be there, you can just select it and delete it. You don't have to keep the point there if you don't want it. Okay. Over here, it then goes from there up to this one, and then it went down to this one, and you can see it has gateways leading into these, and then it went to the end point over there. So that's how you would create your maze. And once you've created it, you can just then go and change the join type again to round to make it all nice and look nice and smooth. And that's your maze created. You can also choose to have, not that one, I want this one over here, points over there. So instead of having gateways, it will then have points instead. So it'll look like this. Okay, so here I've got my start point is green, any stop points are blue, and the end point is red, like that. Okay, so that's how you can create your mazes. Then I just also want to show you, you can use other shapes that aren't available in here, but you have got a number of different shapes that are available. So you have numbers, so you can do, say, the number 8, and you can go and create a maze like this. And it will use the shape of the 8 with the spaces that are already part of the shape. You can also do letters as well. So if you want to create a letter E like that, for instance, you can put the start point wherever you want it to be as normal. So you can move it over here if that works better for you. Whatever works best for you for your maze that you're creating. And I'm just going to create the maze. and it uses the letter E as the shape that it's going to create the maze in. Okay, now if you want to put in a custom shape, you can also use the shapes that are in here over here. You can use these shapes. However, just want to warn you, if you use a shape that has round edges like an oval or like a heart or something like that, I would recommend rather using these shapes over here. I've got a circle which you can change the size of and shape of to make it an oval. I've got a heart for you here as well, because if you look at this, when I put it in, you can see it's actually made up of lots of straight edges. If I try to use this one and I create my maze, it'll create a maze that will look like a circle. Okay, it looks like that. However, if I create a maze using a circle like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to click on this, and instead of selecting one of these, I'm going to go down here and say use shape for maze. I'm going to click on that. So now it knows, okay, this is a shape that can be used for a maze, and I've got a start point and an end point. If I go and click on the create maze, you can see that it doesn't create a circular maze because of the fact that it's working with the round edges of the shape. It can't detect exactly what is part of the shape because of those round edges. So if you are creating a shape or a maze using one of these shapes, I don't recommend using ones that are round. You can create shapes or create mazes using other shapes that have straight sides, and then that'll work. So if I create a shape or a maze using this shape, then I can go over here, go create, go over here, choose use shape for maze, and then I can go and use that shape over there and I can create my maze, and it will create a maze using the shape properly because it has straight edges. So that's fine. Okay. Then you can also create a maze using the freeform shape like this. So you can create any size or any shape like that you want using the freeform tool, and you can go and make a maze out of this shape. So I can go over here, then use shape for maze, but again I recommend only having straight edges, and then when you go and create your maze, it'll look like this. And obviously you can move your start and end points so that it will actually fill the maze properly. Okay, so you can do that as well, and that is how you will also trace a picture if you insert a picture. Okay, so if I have a custom shape that I want to put in using an image, I can go over here and insert custom image. Then you can choose any image that you want to. If you insert an image that's an SVG, so this is one that I have already got, then just make sure that it is just an outline of a shape. If it has multiple parts to it, it's going to cause problems for the maze generator. It needs to just have one outline of a shape that makes the shape for you. So in this case, I've got this shape over here. I'm just going to make that a bit bigger. And because this is an SVG, I'm just going to quickly undo that. And you can see when I go and insert it, so over here, insert custom image, I'm going to insert it again. You can see it brings up a message that says you've inserted an SVG. Right click it and choose convert to shape before continuing. When done, select the shape and click use shape for maze, the use shape for maze button. So over here, it detected that this is an SVG image. So I'm going to go, and I can't use it yet. I need to first convert it to a freeform shape. So I go to right click it, and I go over here and convert to shape. Now it is a shape that I can then use. So now you see this has changed to shape format over there. I can now use that for my maze over here. And now I can go ahead and create my maze. So you can use an SVG image if you want to, and that will allow you to then create your maze. Okay. Or you can also use a different kind of image. So if you want to, you can go over here and use custom image. You can use a PNG or something like that. So if I just use this one, but I can't straight away use this, and I can't convert it to an image or convert it to a shape. If I right click on this, you'll see there is no option to convert this to a shape because it's not an SVG. That option is only available if it's an SVG. So if I want to use a shape like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, once I've inserted it, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to use the freeform tool to trace around it. So I'm going to go over there and trace around it with straight lines like this until I have finished the whole shape. It doesn't have to be completely perfect as long as you have the basic shape, because even when you create your maze, it's going to be blocks anyway, so it's not like you need to have the perfect round edges. I'm just going to quickly finish tracing this. And remember I said also we just want to have the outline of the shape. We don't want to have a shape that has multiple parts or anything, because that's going to confuse the add-in and it won't know what is actually part of the shape and what isn't part of the shape and so on. Okay, so there I've got my shape now that I can then use to create my image. So I'm going to, my maze. So I can delete that. And now I've got my shape that I can go over here and use as shape, use the shape for the maze. Okay, so once I've done that, I can then go and create my maze like this. It's just taking a little while, but it will create the maze. Okay, and that's what my maze looks like using that custom shape that I put in. Okay, so that's how you can do custom shapes as well. When you are creating your maze, these ones that I've done over here for you that have spaces in the middle and stuff, I've created specifically in a way that they will work for the generator. If you try and use one that has a hole in it, it won't necessarily work in the same way. So that's why I say, please just be aware of that. Rather just do outlines of shapes. If you're trying to do a custom image, it should just be outlines of the shapes. If you want to have these kind of ones over here, if you want to have letters and numbers, then use the ones that I've provided, because the holes that are part of the shape, I've specifically done in a way that they will work for the maze generator. Okay, also I just want to show you, if you do try and create using, say, this divide sign over here, which has 2 parts or 3 parts to the shape, it's not going to work. It just isn't able to do it. So if you've got, so like if I go over here and I try and create the maze, it says that, sorry, let me just first use the shape for a maze. Okay, so at this point it thinks that it should work. It's just taken that shape and turned it into a freeform shape. But if I try and do this, it's not going to work properly. It says that no path could be found. And even if I put these like this and like that, it still isn't going to work properly, because it gets messed up because of having the different parts of the shape. So if you have a shape that you want to use, it should all be one shape. You shouldn't have multiple parts of the shape. So that's also why you can see over here, I've got the I and the J, but if I put in an I, it's not going to have the dot. You will put the dot in above it once you have finished creating the maze. And the same thing for the J over there. Also, it's not going to put in the dot because it can't do it if it has 2 parts to the shape. Okay, so then once you've created your maze, so I'm just going to create another one quickly over here. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and change the join type to round. And then once you've created your maze, you can take that maze, you can duplicate it, put 1 copy where you want the maze to be in your resource, 1 copy where you want the solution to be, and then for the one that the students will get, you can just go and select the path and delete it. So they obviously can't see what the correct path is and they need to find it, but you can still keep that for the solution. Okay, then I also want to just show you for the text mazes again quickly. So I'm just going to delete that and create a new one quickly. I'm going to change this to 30 points. I'm going to change this to text. And I'm going to also put in stop points for this. You can also have stop points when you're doing text as well. And I'm going to put a stop point like that. And then I'm going to go over here and click on create maze, and I'll just put in for my path values, I will do, say I want to be counting in 3s from 3 to 100. Then over here I'm going to type in other, but I'm also going to put in over here 1 to 100 because I want my filler values to not just be from 3, I want them to be from 1. So if you put in a range over here, it will use this range for the filler values instead of just using the range that is over there. If you don't put a range, it will just default to using the range that is already over here. Okay, this only obviously applies when you're working with numbers. If you're working with letters, it will just automatically use the whole alphabet as the range for the filler values. Okay, so now I'm going to go and create my maze. I'm going to choose that, yes, I do want them to be in sequence. And then once I've created it, you can then also change the font and things like that over here as well. So it's already selected. I'm just going to go and change this to round if I want to. You don't have to for this. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. It just makes the corners rounded like that. But if you want to change the font, you can go over here to home. It's already selected. You just go over here and choose what font you want it to be. So if you want it to be Calibri, you can change it, or if you want it to be whatever other font you want it to be, you can change the font size, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and so on. If you're using words, you can also go and stretch it so that the words will fit in properly and things like that as well, so long as you have the shape selected. Also, you can, if you want to change colors and things like that of walls and so on, you can just go and ungroup this. So right click and go to group and ungroup over here, and then you can see that the path is one thing, but over here all of the blocks have been grouped together. So you can then go and change all of that to red, or you can change the line color to black, or from black to another color, or anything that you want to do as well. So you can do that by ungrouping. The things are grouped already in like things. So if you have more than one path, you can't have more than one path if you're doing text. But if you're doing the classic type of maze, or if you're doing the obstacle type of maze, then you can ungroup, and then the paths will be grouped together, and the walls and things will be grouped together separately, so that you can just select the group and change the formatting for everything in that group at one time. So I'm just going to quickly show you over here as well for let me just delete that actually rather. I'm going to go over here and put in another one over there. And then I'm going to go and do the obstacles. This is a little bit more complicated, so I just want to show you if you want to change the colors or anything like that. So I'm going to go and I'll have 10 points, and I'm going to make this very difficult and extra long. Okay, so I'm going to go and create my maze. So over here I create it, and then I'm going to go and change this to round as normal. Once I've done that, if you want to change the color of the outlines of the paths or anything, what you're going to do is you're going to ungroup it, and then I would go over here to shape, and you can see that you've got the selection pane over here. Go and click on the selection pane and go and do this so that you can see them more easily. Here you've got the path outline. Select that one. So let's just unselect everything and then select that one. So now you can go and change the color of the path outlines. I'm going to go over here to the path outlines. You can change it to whatever color you want it to. If I wanted that color or that color, it'll change the outlines to whatever color you want. Okay, so that's how you're going to change the path outlines. If you want to change the color of the paths, which is the white part, then you can go and select on that one, and you can go and change the line colors there as well. So you can do that like that, changing those. If you want to change the colors of the obstacles, which are the crosses, then you can go as well and change, that's the shape fill that you're going to be changing there, and the outline color as well. So you're going to change both of those. So you can also change those, and then you can just group it again so that it's all held together as one thing. Okay, now there's one last thing that I need to show you. This applies, it seems, only to people who are working on a PC. The people who are working on a Mac, you shouldn't have to worry about this. But on a PC, what I've found is when you insert your maze and you create your maze, and once you've got it to the point where you're happy with it, so I'm just going to quickly go and create a maze like this. And then I'm going to change this over here to round, the way I've suggested that you do. So now all of my ends and everything are nice and rounded like that. But what I've found is when you export the slide as an image and then import it again in the way that you would when you are flattening the presentation. So if I go over here to publish and I flatten for PDF, what it's doing is it's exporting the slide as an image and it's importing it again. So now you can see over here some of the edges or some of the ends are not rounded, and sometimes it kind of juts out a bit like that, and it's not quite the way that we want it to be. So this doesn't seem to happen on a Mac. So if you're on a Mac, you shouldn't have to worry about this. But if you're on a PC, what I recommend doing is, instead of just flattening straight away, rather export the shape itself as an image and import it, and then have it as an image, and then when you flatten the PDF, that shouldn't happen, because it seems to export the shape as an image properly, where it doesn't export the slide as an image properly, keeping the rounded ends of your lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to go to the Publish tab, and I'm going to go over here to Export Shapes. Another option is to just right click on the shape and choose Save as Picture. That is something that you can do as well. I'm going to choose to use this option, but either way, you should get the same result. The only thing is, over here, I can choose the resolution that I want. So I'm going to choose 300 dpi for my resolution, and to go OK, and then I'm just going to choose the name of the folder that I'm going to use. So I'm going to make that just Maze quickly, and I click OK. Then once I've done that, I'm going to go and insert that picture from that folder. And when I insert the picture now, so I'm just going to move this over here. This is the picture that I just inserted. Now you can see all of the ends are properly rounded the way that they're supposed to be. So if you're on a PC, this is what I recommend doing, so that you don't end up having your ends not rounded the way that you want, is to export your maze as a picture and then insert it as a picture, again replacing the original one. So I would then replace that with that over there, so that I have the image version of it, which then isn't going to get messed up when we flatten the presentation. So if I go and flatten the presentation now, you'll see that all the ends are still rounded the way that they're supposed to be, where it wasn't when I hadn't changed it to a picture first. Okay, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. Thank you. Goodbye.